Jen Orta Casiano. I'm the founder of Miami Film Lab, and we're so excited to have you here today. For those of you who don't know, Miami Film Lab is a nonprofit that is working to support local filmmakers as they work to make a living telling Miami stories. We're working to elevate the profile of local filmmakers, provide mentorship so they're making the best version of their films, and we're raising money to start commissioning films locally. Today is the third installment of our Filmcraft series, and we're so honored to have one of my favorite crew members, Danny Davila, who I've had the honor of working with for many, many decades. God, we're old. Talking today about his fabulous career in production design. I apologize in advance. I have a 3-year-old, and so I'm very stuffy and boogery, which is why I have a cough drop in my mouth. And we'll do that a lot. But so it goes. There's another slide on this with a QR code. You can actually ask questions, which will come directly to my phone if you have any questions while we're having a conversation, and want to help drive where the conversation goes. If not, we'll also open it up to everyone at the end of the conversation. So with that, I introduce Danny Davila.
Or you could just yell things out.
Yeah, that works too. The joys of intimate settings.
That's right.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have this very vivid memory of the first time we met, which will date us because it was at Transit Lounge. You were sitting at the bar.
Adrian was probably playing.
You were editing graphics for the lounge. For those of you who don't know, Transit Lounge is what is now Blackbird Ordinary and was the coolest place to hang out when we were in our 20s, many, many moons ago. So that's where I wanted to start. How did you start graphic design? How did graphic design lead to a film career? Did it all kind of happen at the same time?
Yeah, it all kind of happened at the same time. So I got the film bug in high school where my mom is here, so she's going to love a lot of these stories. Where I almost didn't graduate from high school because I started doing a documentary. Like I played football and I had a football scholarship to play in college. And when I got the film bug, I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And she said, you're going to do it. So I did this documentary and I started skipping school a lot to film the documentary and even more and even more. And I maintained grades with a lot of my classes. I used the power of Gab to get through a lot of the classes. And but there was one teacher who I passed the class, but he gave me a no credit, so I ended up having to go to summer school to graduate.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Miami High.
Woohoo!
So during my graduation, I even won an award for citizenship during my graduation from the president. And they called my name out, and I wasn't there because I wasn't invited. So that was it was a pretty rough start to the film industry for my mom. But I went away and I played football for a semester, and it was okay. And I said I'm done with that, and I came back. And again, through my mom, I got a job for the city of Miami with Commissioner Joe Sanchez. And because I love everything that I do, I fell in love with working for the city and noticed that there was a lot of things that the commissioner could reach the public more through, at the time, which was crazy in the early 2000s, like no commissioner had a website, right? So the mayor didn't have a website. So the city had a website, but they had just paid a lot of money to this big company to redesign the website and make it look like the 21st century. And so I said, you know what, I think I could do it. So I learned graphic design while making his website, but I did it in Photoshop, not in Illustrator, and I did it like nothing web-based. So I had no idea what I was doing. So then I made the website, and then I presented it to the IT department, and they said, this is all wrong. And they said, you can't do this. Because the mayor doesn't even have a website. And I was like, yeah, but it's done. And like, I was doing it on my own time, like after hours, like it was nuts. And
this is my experience working with you. Like, what is your job and what you do never quite mesh. Like you always
Correct.
go above and beyond everything that needs to happen.
Well, it's and it leads that this goes on to like Burn Notice and how I became a production designer afterwards. But so then the IT department, so I did this, and then they said, well, you can't do that. They were really offended. I went upstairs to the mayor's office and I talked to the mayor's chief of staff and I said, please let me, can we do this website before the mayor's? And he said, yeah, we don't care. Like, website, what is that? Like, he didn't say that, but he was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so then IT got really mad because they were like, now we gotta show you how to use another program. And I said, I'll learn it. Just give me access to it. So I learned another program. I think it was called Microsoft Front Page, which is what they were doing at the time. And
really dating ourselves there.
yeah. So I used all their templates, redesigned the website. They made it live, and then I did a newsletter for him. So that's how I learned graphic design. And I was with Joe for 5 years. And in that time, Robert Parenti, who's not with us anymore, I will get very emotional a lot today.
For those of you who don't know, Robert Parente was the film commissioner at the time in the early 20s for the city of Miami.
Right. So Robert said, come with me to the dark side. Come. And during that time, we were filming. I was doing a lot of little music videos, commercials. Actually, Diana's here. We were in film school together. So we were shooting a lot of stuff. There was a lot of things going on. And my mom kept saying, you got to have a real job. Like, you can't, I was working for the city and I was going to school, which ended up not being, a finishing venture.
By school, you mean Miami-Dade Film School?
I was at Miami-Dade Film School.
Shout out to School of Entertainment and Design Technology
That's right.
at Miami-Dade College.
Very involved with the school. Yep. And so Robert said, come, work in the film office. And I said, and I talked to Joe about it because at the time Joe was running for mayor and he was the chairman of the city commission, and he was very excited about the opportunity as well. So I went to Robert's office and I said, I'll do it for 1 year. And I did it for literally 1 year and 1 day. In that year is when I met the people from Burn Notice, and they were shooting the pilot. And I was the person that would sign all the film permits. And I wrote, like, during that time, we reorganized like how the city did permitting. And that was actually a joint venture between the county, Miami Beach, and the city of Miami. You know this very well. And the three film commissioners were very simpatico at the time, right? They really worked well together, and all three departments, we were writing the rules as we made new permits, right? So it's like, they've never filmed in a cemetery. What are the rules for a cemetery? So we would write the rules, and we would adjust as people would go. So that was a very fruitful year because I did, I think, 1,000 film permits that year. So it was nuts. And, Catherine, my boss, the middle boss, she was the assistant film commissioner. She had a, big job there because she would edit all my bad writing and make sure that all the things were right. And I wasn't going too film friendly and, protecting the, businesses and the locations a little bit more. So it was a good balance. So yeah, so in that time, Burn Notice came into town, and
that, hold up, that film permit system is still the one the county uses today, correct?
The county
Until
still,
like they're starting a new one in like a week, but for now,
the county still uses that film permit system. The city doesn't, I don't think.
The city stopped 4 or 5 years ago. They moved away. But the beach and the county still use that until in a couple weeks when they're finally moving on to a website that doesn't look like it's 20 years old.
From 2025. Yeah.
But yeah.
2005, I mean. Yeah, so and then I went into the Burn Notice worlds, knowing a little bit of graphic design, leading into but my job was art department coordinator, which was basically making sure that all the paperwork was, this well, paperwork was done right, and all the checks, and supporting all the different departments.
Yeah. When he says paperwork, he is downplaying a lot. In film, for those of you who don't know, when you work on big Hollywood films, the amount of paperwork that goes into it with purchase orders and petty cash envelopes and permits and receipts and all that stuff, it's a huge endeavor, and it's always baffled me. I tend to do a lot of location coordinating work, and those are very unsung heroes because the amounts of paper, especially back before everything was digital when we all started, was like, you walk into the office and it looked like one of those cartoons of accountants, which is like piles and piles everywhere.
Yeah, it was. So what would happen was that the decorator would come in with $5,000 worth of receipts, because that's basically what they had back then. We actually used cash, not anymore. But the decorator would walk in with $5,000 worth of receipts, throw it on my desk, and say, "I gotta go buy some more shit." Um, so you'd have to go and organize it, itemize it, make a photocopy, give it to accounting. It's like it's the stuff
And
that
by
you have to
itemize
do.
it, he means like this is for this scene in this
Correct.
episode and used by this character, and like very detailed accounting of what
That
this is used
none of
for.
it matters, by the way.
No one cares.
Nobody cares. It gets thrown out 3 months later. But if you don't do it that way, the accountants will not give you more cash. Like you have to do it that way or you're done.
And it's funny because the only person who actually cares is the coordinator, because they
Right.
need to know like that they have enough stuff for each scene and
Right.
like track
And then
the
you're
thing.
calling
Or
the
when
decorator and saying, "Hey, you should stop spending money because you're out." Like,
yeah, like they're checking the budget, so like it's important for them, but no one else cares. But they still have to do all this work.
right.
When most of it ends up in your head anyway. And then you have to find that one receipt to go return the thing that
Right.
didn't end up in
Then
the
you
movie.
have to keep then you have to go back then you have to go back to accounting and say, "Please, I need the original," because they're the ones that keep the originals, and you have to come. It was a nightmare. But anyway, but at that time, going back to doing things that is not my job, I noticed that the graphic designer we had hired at the time was not really like meshing well with the two bosses. The other thing is our art department was tiny. It was two production designers, which is not really, it's very rare to have two production designers, but there was no art director, there was no staff. It was them two, me, and a graphic designer.
That is tiny.
Yeah, it was tiny. So that graphic designer wasn't meshing well with them, and I would give options, like they would come and I would give options that like beyond his, and every week they were like picking my options, and he was getting more and more upset. But I would wait, I would stay after. I wouldn't tell them that I was doing this. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. And he came and he confronted me, and I said, "Yeah, but they keep picking mine. Like I'm just trying to help you so you don't look bad, like I was just trying to help." And after a couple weeks, he said it in front of the designer and said, like, you know, he keeps doing all these things. You keep picking his graphics. And he was like, "Well, if he's doing your job, then you don't need to be here." So he was gone. And then I had his responsibility full time and my responsibility full time. And at the time is when video playback was emerging. And I say video playback, it's right when the iPhone came out. So we're doing graphics on the iPhone, and there was no case law, which is another crazy thing in the film industry, that you have to have a very loyal mentality of protecting yourself from litigation from everybody in the entire planet. I don't think if we were filming here, I'd be able to show this carpet. But so you have to create everything. So we were showing the iPhone, and I had to create screens that look terrible for calls and stuff. And there was no avenue of there was no way to make them interactive. So I would come up with an idea. Like one of the ideas that I had was like, this is a high-tech spy show. And we had a thumbprint that was in one of the scripts. And I said, "Why don't we use the iPhone for that?" And my boss said, "Sure, do it." And I said, "But I don't know how to do it." And he said, "Well, then don't do it." And I was like, but I think it's cool. And he's like, "Well, then figure it out." And then it started getting into a point where I kept doing that. And then they were like expecting me to do it, right? So actually there was one point that everyone knows, who doesn't know Bruce Campbell? Bruce Campbell, the actor. All right. So Bruce Campbell was he's like a B movie star, great, like really nice guy, but he does all these horror movies. And I hadn't seen any, but I had just watched like a couple of his really scary movies, and I started getting afraid of this guy. So I would show up to set and I'd say, "Yeah, please don't kill me." Um, but anyway, so there was a moment there in season 2 of Burn Notice where I'm under a desk running video playback. He's an ex-spy, and he's talking about there's visual cues or there's audio cues where he's like, and the guy walks down the street and then he turns the corner and he's clicking buttons and stuff is supposed to happen on the screen. We didn't do green screen back then. I didn't know how to do this any other way, and we didn't have any programming. So I was under the desk controlling the screen that he was on, listening to him, because we didn't have any way for me to hear what he was saying other than me being under the desk. At the same time, in between takes, when they were moving the cameras and doing the setups, I had another laptop that I was doing graphic design for the signage that I needed to print out for tomorrow. and I had another laptop where I was doing petty cash envelopes. And it was the moment that I realized, laying down for 12 hours doing 3 jobs, that I needed to ask for more help. So I asked for more help, and we got somebody to help alleviate that stress. So somebody took over the art department coordinating side, and I just kept progressing. I started liking everything, all the aspects of art department. So I started learning set design, and the way I learned set design is I would take the drawings of my bosses, and I would retrace them. I don't know when or how I found the time to do this. I would retrace them, and then one of my bosses said, who was a huge influence in my life, and actually I co-production designed a project in Puerto Rico with him, Mark Harrington.
Another like iconic member of the Florida film community. Mark's
Right.
worked on everything
He's
and is
the
one of the most fabulous people you can meet.
yeah, he's the Miami production designer. Um, so anyway, so Mark, he knew I knew Photoshop, and back then you would hand draw stuff, and you had to erase it. If the director said, I want the wall 1 foot over, you had to erase a bunch of stuff to make the wall 1 foot over. So he's like, why don't you just put it in Photoshop and just like slide it over? I'm like, yeah, I have so much time to do this. So I did it. And then I was like, this is annoying. I need to learn like an online way to do this. So I'll take his drawings, redraw them really fast. And then if changes are made, then I could. So that's how I learned how to draw in CAD. And then finally, after a couple seasons, they said, why don't you just start drawing sets that we could build? And then that was the next progression. And
That's actually one of the questions someone sent in is, like, besides learning CAD, like, how did you learn the architectural part of that? Like, it's not enough to like draw 4 walls. You need to actually draw something that can be built and can like stay up. And I mean, generally, nothing has to be decode on a film festival. We have these lovely, especially in Florida, these lovely building codes. We're exempt from all building codes as long as it's a temporary structure for film,
yeah,
which helps a lot, or else we would never get anything done.
Yeah.
So how did you like turn learning the mechanics of making something in CAD into like making something that could actually stand?
it's a great question because it's exactly what I was going to talk about. And what happened was he was actually my art director. So the art director is the person underneath the production designer who's like the main person that makes everything happen for you when you have all these crazy ideas. He's my art director now, but back then he was the construction foreman, and his name is Paul Hendricks. And I would draw something. I was so proud of drawing it, and I would take it down to him, and he would crumble it up immediately. He wouldn't even look at it. Crumble it up, throw it in the trash, and say, "This is shit. Do it again." And then I would go, but his boss, the construction coordinator, Mike Metzel, he would look at it and he would be like, he would pretend, which I was so naive about it. He would pretend that he's never seen a drawing. So he's like, wow, this is great. And what's that door there? What's that thing right there? I said, oh, that's a door. He said, how wide is it? I don't know, 3 foot, 5 inches. He's like, and where do you think I'd be able to buy a door that's that size? I don't know, Home Depot. Well, I don't think Home Depot makes that. They have standard sizes. Oh shit, maybe I should go look up architectural standards. So then I would look up sizes of doors, and okay, now I know 3.0, 3.1. I don't know. There's different sizes for door, 28 inches. Same thing with heights, and the same. I would go back and what size is that window? So you want, how many carpenters do you think it's going to take to build that window? Well, I don't know. Can't you just get one at Home Depot? Well, I don't think they make that size. And then I have to go and do that again, right? So, and then at this whole time, I'm bringing stuff, and Paul is, with his nickname is Rex. Rex is still throwing them out. He's not even looking at them. And after like 5 months, like it was at the end of one of the seasons of Burn Notice, I finally bring a drawing, and it is perfect. I'm telling you, it is like, I could frame it now. It's so perfect. And he comes, I swear this happened. I put it down. He looks at it. He's like, huh, okay, yeah. He's like, that's pretty good. I said, great, you're going to build it? And he goes, yeah, I already did. It's over there. And in the time that it took me to draw the set, they had already taken the production designer's little sketch and built it. Now it was like a dungeon. Built it, aged it, made it look like terrible. Like it was perfect. It was ready to shoot. And so then that's when I learned about being more expedient and timing and, looking at schedules and all this other millions of things that you have to do to, make the job happen. So yeah, that's how I learned that aspect of it, which is just basically getting beat up by the guys that do the actual job. Which is why now I don't like I am a lot of production designers aren't this way. Some are, but a lot of production designers don't um consider themselves. I mean, everyone thinks that they're a filmmaker, right? But they don't consider themselves filmmakers. They consider them, they are architects or they're something. So they worry about things that I feel are not important, right? Like I feel that baseboards around a thing are not necessarily. It's important to be there, but it's not important unless it calls for it's a very specific shot or a period piece that needs something very specific. Like for the most part, you're building a house. Like, what do they do in real life? Even if it's a multi-million-dollar mansion, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna go to Home Depot and see what's in stock, right? Or some big box store. Maybe I shouldn't keep giving Home Depot free advertisement. Um,
Home Depot, come find us if you would like some to sponsor our organization.
that's right. So they will go and find what's in stock, and so you know what happens is set designers and production designers and art directors get stuck in drawing those details. So in the CAD program, they'll draw the profile of the thing that you're gonna buy, and then they'll put item number blah 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 in Home Depot, 27 in stock. You don't have to do any of that. You draw a little line and say, go find something in stock, right? It saves you time, it saves the construction people time, and sometimes it gives them a little bit more creative ability, right? A creative license, right? So that's something that I really like giving the carpenters. In Chicago, I did a show with this master carpenter for staircases, right? This guy, he was a Polish guy, and he like they told me stories about the staircase. He had a Polaroid book of the staircases that we needed to, that he had built, and then we needed to build the staircase. And he comes up to me and says, "Okay, well, what kind of staircase do you want to, build?" And I said, I'm not gonna design. I'm all the things. I'm like, make it look great. This is what the house is supposed to look like. And the guy designed something and built something that I would have never even dreamed of, and it was beautiful, right? And it gave him the ability to just do it. And after the project, he said, "Thank you so much, because sometimes I get drawings from designers and they're really bad, and I draw it to specs, and then they look at it and they think it was my work that was bad, and really it was theirs." And I said, "Yeah, I'm not an expert in stair making, so go build a beautiful staircase." And he did. So it's something, giving the creatives a creative license is something that actually a lot of people don't let happen.
Yeah, and I think more than that, I think as someone who works with the art department, I do a lot of locations, as I said. There's so many production designers that like will nitpick the like craziest things, and we're like, that's gonna be on screen for like 4 seconds, but like in their vision of the thing, it really matters. And one of the great things about always working with Danny is he's like, yeah, I have like 12 things to worry about. These are gonna have lots of screen time, and this is like not a thing.
Yeah.
And like you would be surprised how many not only production designers but like camera guys or whatever like will fixate on these little things because like in their brain they're really important. And I think Danny has a really great way of being like, there's too much to do, let's work on like the really cool shit that's really important, and like the rest of the stuff, like if we get to it, great, if not, move on.
Well, one of the things I always talk about is so I worked on a show where the production designer, we built this crazy 4-wall. It was just one room set, and it was really detailed. We ordered doorknobs from LA and hardware from France and baseboards from whoever, I don't know. It was insane. They spent like $200,000 on this like one room office, right? It was beautiful. And in the script, it was written one page, and it was a very well-to-do guy, right? And the top of the script says he walks into his office, he sits at his desk, and then it says he opens his laptop and he reads the screen. So we measure scripts in eighths of a page, right? So 2/8 of the page was him walking in and sitting down. 6/8 of the page was him looking at the screen. So basically, they designed this set, and we built this set for $250,000 for the guy to walk in and sit down at the thing, in the dark, right? You could have done so much. You could have saved so much money and used that money for other things, right? Other departments.
And then everyone wonders why movies cost so much money.
Right. And so then the guy sits down, does the thing right, and the production designer could care less what was on the screen, and I was flipping out because I'm like, that's 6/8 of a page. That's gonna be on screen way more than the French thing that you put, filigree that you put in the corner, and the mantle that you ordered from wherever, you know, and it literally was like a close up of the guy's face walking in and then opening the thing. We didn't see any of the set. What was crazy about of that whole thing is we had a library set in the stage that we were doing this in. So they could have used the same library set, changed the books around, and been done with it. But this person was like really hell bent on building this beautiful thing. So for me, that was very wasteful. So those are the kind of things that, as I was progressing and learning and seeing and observing, like saying, man, that $250,000 could have gone to locations because they didn't have enough people that day, or they could have gone to set dressing because they needed another driver or whatever, right? So that's where I get like I get in trouble sometimes because I think about logistics a little too much. And like as a matter of fact, there was a movie that was actually I shouldn't say the studio. There was a movie that was supposed to be in Miami, and okay, it was Father of the Bride. I'll just say it, whatever. I didn't get the movie because the person that I interviewed with, who was a producer on it, told my agent that I was worried a little bit too much about the art direction and I was very excited about talking about, which was crazy to me. I was talking about the camera angles and like how I would design a house so that the character would come to life through the house. This person was supposed to be an architect. We all know it was played by Andy Garcia, and Gloria Stefan, right? Like was the wife. And I was talking about the character and how the wife was, so important to the story, and how the decorating of the house was supposed to be, show how she was the head of the household, and how he was like this architect that was just tortured by life, and in the corner. They ended up changing his story arc. Maybe it was because of the way that I said it in my interview, but I didn't get the job because they told my agent that I was worried too much about the filming of it, and not enough about the overall big picture. For me, that's the big picture. For me, the tone of the story is the most important thing. And if you can't design a space properly to tell that story, then it doesn't matter. Like, you want to hire me as an architect, I'll go get my license and you could give me a lot of money and I'll go design your houses. But I'm trying to make projects, I'm trying to make film, so it's a little different mentality. And I think most designers go into interviews and they talk about colors and, other things. And I'm talking about the camera angles and stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy in film that like there are people who, no matter what department they are always thinking about everyone else and how it all kind of meshes together. And then there's other filmmakers who are like, this is my lane and I will stay in there. And there's benefits to both. I tend to fall in we're all working towards the same goal. Like, it doesn't matter what department I'm in. And I know from working with Danny for many years that's how you work. And I think it makes for better products, but that's a conversation for another day. So going back to Burn Notice, how we're running out. We've been at this for a while, so we're gonna skip along to like you ended up running.
Everyone has time, right?
Yeah, all the time.
I don't have to be on a flight till 5 p.m.
Yeah, but there's a movie at 1:30. So.
Okay.
So how did you transition, having worked on Burn Notice, into getting other projects?
So at the end of Burn Notice, Burn Notice was the only project that was here full time. And I started getting calls for projects out of town. Like, I did a little thing in Chicago. It was one of the many things that I had been doing at that time, which is rear screen projection. So if anyone sees bad green screen on projects, I did a lot of that, bad green screen. But I did it good enough that the studio would hire me to go to places, so I went to Chicago to do that.
So let's go back. So the studios were the ones calling you for things?
For that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I noticed that I saw that Atlanta was starting to like become a little bit busy, right? And the options at the time was stay in Miami and kind of transition into commercials and music videos, and it's something that I had done a lot of, earlier in my career, and I was not interested in. And I think there was not of a lot of creative ability, um, or creative license in commercials, right? You get like these storyboards, and you're like, make that picture happen, right? And then make the next picture happen. So I was kind of not really interested in that. And so I said, I got to move, right? I got to go wherever work is. New Orleans was New Orleans was the big boom town at the time, but everybody was getting arrested because there was so much fraud happening with film incentives. So it was very rapidly going away. The film, the film incentive in Florida was sunsetting. It was planned, it was a sunset that was happening in a couple of years. The Carolinas, which was a boom town in the early 2000s, was, or the late 90s and early 2000s, was starting to go away. So everything pointed towards Atlanta. So I said, I'm going to go to Atlanta. Marvel's moving to Atlanta. Marvel movies have many art directors. At that time, I was an art director. So I said, maybe I'll be an art director on one of these, Marvel movies, or one of these movies that comes into town. So I packed up. I did the other show that was in town was Graceland. And so
which we worked on together.
So I art directed season 2 of that. And one of our actors broke his foot towards the end of the season, and we had 6 weeks off. And in that 6 weeks, I decided, because I don't do anything slowly, if I either don't do it at all or I do it very fast. I flew to Atlanta, met with a realtor, bought a house, flew back to Miami, finished Graceland. I was actually the tech scout of the Graceland, and my uncle in Atlanta was signing for my house for me. I had to do a power of attorney. And I moved to Atlanta over the course of a few weekends so that I could start immediately, being available. So Graceland finished, and then I started a show called Complications, which was very complicated. I was the art director. I was one of 2 art directors. My boss got let go during the process, during the prep of that show, and the studio asked me to take over as the production designer. And the way that I found out, which was crazy, and this is what leads to how I get hired now, is I found out an agent called me and he said, "Congratulations, I heard you're going to get an offer to be the production designer on Complications." And I said, "What?" I literally had no idea. So we were all embattled. Like I was in the middle of this pretty tumultuous breakup from a production designer and a film project. And I get a call, and he said, yeah, I don't think you should go to work tomorrow. I think it's gonna be pretty weird over there. So you're gonna get a call. Don't worry, you'll be fine. You should take it. And I said, oh, I gotta talk to people. So I talked to the showrunner. I talked to one of my mentors who was a production designer on Burn Notice and was now a producer on this. And I said, you guys, think I should do it? And they're like, yeah, that's why we want you to do it. Like, we'll support you. Go for it, right? So I accepted the job, signed with that agent, a few hours later, because I was like, I don't know how this guy is magical and knows these things. And then for a while, he's the one. And then actually, funny enough, a couple weeks later, I got a call from the producers of Graceland saying, we're going to make a change on Graceland. Do you want to do season 3 as the production designer? And I said yes, because it was the same studio. So word got around quick that I was a production designer now. And all of a sudden, I've never even production designed. I'm in the van. I have a funny story about that, actually. I'm in the van for one day in the scouting, looking for locations. And I'm getting all these phone calls about shows that are happening 8 months from now and crazy stuff. And so I said, okay, I guess I'll just work even harder and to prove that I could do this job. And then so that's how it went. And then those ups and downs, for a little bit, I didn't want to, I was very important to me to maintain, once I became a production designer, to maintain that level and not become an art director, not art direct, because I didn't want it on my resume to show that, that I was flip-flopping, which now doesn't really matter. I hire people, I don't care if they were production designers, art directors, whatever. But it was important for me. So for a while, I was taking only projects that were production designer. Actually, I don't think I've ever done anything other than directing or producing. or production once I became one. Anyway, so I said I'm not going to take art directing jobs, and yeah, so I just kept going. So my agent got me projects, but then after a little bit, like it doesn't even matter anymore. Like now, my agent gets me like maybe 5% of the work, and they take 10% of my pay, but whatever. Now I just get random phone calls from producers and say, "Who's your agent?" And yeah, I'll call them. Don't worry, I want you to work on this project. And then I read the script, and then then that's a whole other process of getting a job.
Do you find that the projects that come in directly from producers are somehow different from the projects your agent's able to bring you?
No, they're exactly the same. As a matter of fact, no. I will say, projects that agents bring me are more difficult to get. Projects that a producer approaches me or a director approaches me, I know I'm pretty much going to get it. If it's through the agent, it's they're looking for somebody of a certain weight. Like for example, Father of Bride was from my agent, and I didn't get it. So and those are ones when they come to the agent, you have to do like a lookbook and designs, and it takes a long time to prep for that. So if you're busy and you're working, it's nearly impossible to make those presentations. So you have to kind of make yourself available certain times of the year to be ready to make presentations. Luckily, I've not had to follow some kind of structure like that. I just keep getting calls and I just go, except for this year. I haven't gotten any, just one.
I wonder why. It's not like the entire industry is shut down because of various strikes. Yeah. But so for those lookbooks and those things that you present to directors, are they compensating for that, or is it like commercial directors where we spend a ton of time like working a ton to get the job and then maybe making some money off of it?
There is no compensation.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there's another TV show that was. Couple TV shows. There's a couple TV shows that have 100% stolen my ideas and designs and hired somebody else. One of them was shot. I should just say the names. I don't care. Promised Land was a pilot that was about a family of.
We'll ask your agent if he wants us to beep this out.
Yeah, maybe. No, that one doesn't matter. That one, they ended up. It's funny. I got a call. I did an interview, and then I never got a call back. And then like 5 months later, I found out that the pilot got shot and it got picked up. And but actually, the person that designed the set was actually an art director that I work with. So I know he didn't steal my design because he didn't know that I was even up for that show. But there were a lot of aspects of the story that I had intertwined into my lookbook because I don't design things I design things a little differently. So I actually talk about story and potential and stuff that I'm like, wow, that was not in the scripts originally, and that's now in the scripts. There was another project which I will not say because that one I could really get in trouble. But they stole my entire like stage design. Like it was a talk show. It was a 4th season of a show, and they took literally my drawings and built those drawings with another production designer. Like it was nuts. It was like it was a talk show. I could have sued them like because I didn't sign anything saying like, hey, these are
yours now. Yeah.
Well, right. I didn't sign any like non-disclosures or anything. I didn't, but it was my exact presentation. So they liked my designs, but they must have not liked me.
Or your salary.
No, I mean salary. No, I'm probably sure they hired somebody that. No, probably not. Actually,
yeah, probably not. Yeah.
Maybe not. Yeah.
So has that changed how you approach that? I know you said that most of your jobs you don't have to do this for, but like, are you a little more protective of that stuff until you kind of have a signed contract?
No,
or like,
it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm gonna keep working, and it doesn't like it doesn't bother me. Like it's a little weird, right? Sometimes like that show, I watched every episode. I'm like, man, they used every aspect of the design that I said. Like it was a control room. It was like through the control room into the thing because there was like storylines with 4 different characters, and the way that it was written was all segmented and like not, it was not. And so I designed the set that you could show all the characters and the whole life of the show, and really the set, came to life when you're over somebody's shoulder, looking through the control room window, and you see all the monitors, and you see live cameras, and you see the thing going on there. Then you cut to the person behind the desk or doing the interview, like, and then you could go to the audience, and like there was just this whole world that I created in a set, and then they just did it. So, so it was cool because I was like, wow, they used every aspect of the design. But yeah, it doesn't bother me. Like,
It's probably not too late to sue them now that you've been out of work for a while because of the strike.
no, it's that shows it's long gone, and it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Plus, if you sue them, then you can't work for them again anymore. So it's like it's a pretty big. It's a pretty. It's one of the big ones. So.
So that takes us to one of the questions from the audience. How important is it to you to stand by your vision? How much do you kind of mold what you want to do to what the director and producer want? And another question of how much of yourself and your design and your flair do you try to put in to the script, or do you stay pretty close to what is kind of called for in the script?
That's funny. So I am very malleable. I tell like producers when I start, I could give you as much or as little as you need. Right? You need a yes man to go paint the walls mustard and Merlot, and I'll make it the best mustard and the best Merlot that you want. You want me to design something and put, think about the script and think about the story and take care of all that, then I do. And it's a mix. It's funny because like it's actions speak louder than words with a lot of people. So some producers will say, no, we want you to take care of everything, and then they start nitpicking at everything, and then you're like, well, I'll just not do anything and just wait for you to. But it's like a weird world because you have to keep going, making things go forward, right? So with the producers that get a little bit more nitpicky, you have to have a little bit more patience, which I don't have because I don't have time for anything. So those are the projects that get a little bit more tiresome, right? Because I just have to keep pushing designs through. What I really like is when I show, actually my graphic designer's here, Nick, and he's the best graphic designer I've worked with by far. Yeah. So Nick will.
No, I know some of his his graphic designers. I don't doubt it.
Yeah, no, he's wonderful. But so Nick will tell you that when we, there's memes in the internet like you show like final design to the client, right? And then they're like, oh, that's a good start, and you're like, wah wah wah. So like when Nick works on something for hours, right? And then I have to see it, and then I keep going back and forth with him, right? And then I have to show it to somebody else, and then they keep going back and forth with me. It's like we're not doing that, right? Like so what I like is not having that back and forth and being able to have the creative control. If it's because you don't like something from a style standpoint, then I understand. But if it's about the story that you need to change something because of the story, then I'll accept it. If it's because you don't like it and that's not your style, then I don't accept it, right? Like we're just gonna do what our thing. Because if not, I'll go direct the actors, and then you could come and be the production designer, and we could swap jobs, and I'll take your side, you take mine, and we'll do that, right? Because I don't sit on set and like critique any of their jobs, so they don't need to sit on in my office and critique mine. And that's no disrespect. I'm very I work very well with others, mostly when they let me do my thing, right? And just I stay in my lane, but you whatever. But my lane is mine. Don't come into my lane.
And presumably you have a conversation with the directors and the producers before anything gets started, and you kind of like agree to a look and feel and a direction we're going. So like if you're on the same page, and then like halfway through the production they're like, that thing we talked about, yeah, I want the exact opposite of that.
Then that's when I quit. literally, we talked about this earlier. I've quit 2 projects in my entire career, and I think both of them were after COVID, and both of them were within 12 months of each other. And I think maybe the pandemic helped it. Maybe the fact that I had a new budding family helped it. But one of those was literally that. They wanted to change everything in the visuals of the project to what I had said from the beginning. And I was like, oh well, you could do that with somebody else. I'm gonna go spend a little bit of time with my family, and I'm gonna start my next project. So, and I did have something lined up, and there was something that they knew about. They knew that I had to go to another project, and I was gonna keep traveling back and forth from actually, it was a job in Miami. So from Atlanta to Miami, that I would fly back home every Friday night and fly back, to Miami every Sunday or Monday morning, go straight to the office, and it was very tiresome. And I was willing to do that, but when they changed everything back to a lot of the original ideas and designs that I had, I was pretty much like not up for supporting that change, especially when I was going on to another project that needed a lot of attention as well, and I was going to a project that they supported me and let me do my thing, right? And celebrated it, right? And not only celebrated it, actually gave me a lot of stress because they were like, "That's great, now do more." So, but it was a job that was very fruitful for me, and allowed me to be with my family and go home in the middle of the day or towards the end of the day, and you know put them to bed and then keep working, but do it on my schedule and not um, some crazy in the office 19 hours a day schedule. So, but yeah, so I, like, for example, going to that is the game season one, right? Like, so the the showrunner, and I think before I say that, I think that with my in 20 years into the business, I think now I finally started to like only want to do projects like if there's tension or if I have to, compromise, like I used to do it no problem. Now I'm just like I don't feel like doing that. Like I'm too tired. I'm too old for this. Like I've been doing this for too long to like be stressed about wanting to, cater to somebody else's ideas, unless I'm totally into the project. And if it's a project that kind of just sours it for me now, which before I just fight through it and just make it happen. But yeah, like on the game season one, that's the reason why the two jobs that I've quit were for that project. Um, the showrunner, when I did the interview, he said, "Well, we're doing a football facility," and I said, "Okay, no problem, an NFL football facility." He said, "I need a locker room, a coach's office, a weight room, and like a practice field, like a little practice thing, right?" And I looked at the stages that were available to film this in, and I talked to the producer. We picked a sound stage, a studio that was gonna work for us. Is that the 30-minute? No, no, it's you. The 30. Should I shut up now, Mom? So I picked a sound stage that I think was gonna work for us, and then I worked really hard for like a week straight designing something and showing it to him and presenting and saying, "You're gonna have to change a few things in the story, but if you like it, like I could do the owner's office overlooking a practice facility and like do a mezzanine, and I could incorporate the locker room, the weight room, everything into one giant set, which allows you to do all these other things, sort of like the other project that took my idea and built it." But I said we could do all that stuff in this one facility, and then it'll help. Mostly, I was thinking like it'll help camera, because if you need to go from the owner's office to the football field, like the transition's quick and you're in the same facility and you just move the camera and you keep shooting. So it'll make your days faster, everything. And he's like, "I love it. That's amazing. Can you build more offices? Can you do this?" So he like extended on it. He didn't fight me on it. And then they changed a lot of the story to, be in that facility more. So it was great. And then I had to expend even more money because originally the grass that I was going to put was just on concrete, but they wanted to do so much football in there that I had to get padding for it because they were going to hurt themselves. So, but it was, happy, like a Bob Ross, a happy accident.
So how often does that happen where you have an idea, either both practically or creatively, and it leads to changes in the script and the story?
If the producers aren't assholes, then it happens often. No, it depends. It depends on how collaborative people want to be, truthfully. And I say that very cavalier, but I'm very collaborative, right? So it depends. Like if I give a suggestion and they don't like it, then I'm like, all right, I'll just shut up. But I do that a lot. Like I give like a million suggestions. Actually, I was in a meeting on MacGyver with a producer, and the producer didn't realize I was in the meeting, and the showrunner, who's the big boss, she's like, "Oh, Danny had this idea in the email," and he goes, "Yeah, but it's Danny. He has 1,000 ideas a day." right? And I was like, oh, hello. And he's like, oh, you're here, but you do have 1,000 ideas a day. And I go, yeah, but at least one is good. And he goes, yeah,
In my experience, they're mostly good. We just usually run out of time and energy to
to
execute
execute
most
all
of
of
them.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
As someone who would run into the art department to complain about things or with ideas for things
Yeah.
all the time, me and Daniel be like, wouldn't it be cool if they did this or that? And especially as Miami natives who work on a lot of projects with people who are shooting in Miami but not Miami natives,
Yeah.
there's a lot of conversations, at least between us two, going, don't they know that that's not a thing that we do?
You don't have to only shoot in Domino Park. Like, you could. I've done, and I listen. I do it all the time. Like, you have to have the quintessential Domino Park scene, but you could go outside. You could go a block east or a block west, and it's still Miami. You know?
Yeah, I love there's a show that we worked on together where like we want to be very authentic, we want to be fabulous, like very Miami. We want this to like look and feel it's based on a Miami thing or whatever. And then I, as a location person, be like, well, this is what the actual thing looks like. This is the places we can shoot. This one looks really close to that. This one looks nothing like that. And Danny and I would be on a call and be like, yeah, this is the one that like is the thing you said you wanted. And then they're like, yeah, but we don't like that. We went to the other thing. I'm like, but what happened to wanting to be Miami?
Yeah.
So we get a lot of that, especially in this town.
They don't want to be Miami, literally.
Yeah.
They want to be what their perception of Miami is, which is something that I always like. Father of the Bride was one that I really wanted to be on, and I was very upset that I didn't get it because they were shooting in Atlanta for the most part, and I wanted to make sure that it was represented well, which I think they did a really good job of representing Miami well. I will, and that's yes, and yes,
Visually.
yeah, no, yes, that was
We'll leave that there. But I think another one where you did a really good job of that is you worked on Beauty and the Baker. And the like Cuban bakery look of that is so quintessentially Miami, down to like
I just got
everything in the
goosebumps.
it truly is. It's one I've never seen a
so-
Cuban bakery, and we've tried to duplicate Cuban bakeries more than once.
yeah.
I'm a little annoyed that it was on Washington and you can see Madonna's in the background when it's supposed to be Little Havana, but whatever. The case looks so beautiful that I can accept the location issues of that show.
What you talking about, the Beauty and the Baker?
Yeah.
It changed a little bit. So that was from the pilot, and that was like we actually ended up changing the storefront to kind of more Calle Ocho, and that's when we got to we shot that show in Puerto Rico, and when we're in San Juan, I said we need to find a street that kind of looks like Calle Ocho, and then like I could make the stores across the street look like the dollar stores, and like, you know, like where Madi, like my aunt, I just channeled my aunt Madi like through that time of designing that. And Mark, that was the show that Mark and I designed together, and he's, you know, a Miami native and, you know, married to a Cuban, so he was very into making it very accurate. But it's funny, the bakery, the interior on the pilot was shot in the pilot was shot in Atlanta. And the bakery was this bakery called Rhodes Bakery, and it's like it was this ratty, roach infested, it's closed now so I could say it, bakery that was run by these two white guys that all they made was these cheese finger things. I don't know how they sold them because they tasted like garbage. And it was like you know, like the packaging that you put like mariquitas in, or like, you know, croquetas, like it was like this weird thing, and they would make like 1,000 of these trays a day, and I'm like, I don't know where it must have been some kind of mafia. Please don't kill me. Like, it must have been some kind of front, because these guys were making these things every day. So they had some really cool ovens in the back, and they had some really cool equipment, and we actually built those ovens out of PVC and wood, right? Like, we duplicated those ovens, and Mark was the one that like really masterminds getting that, because he was actually during the pilot, that is the one job that I took as an art director. He was the production designer in the pilot, and I was the art director, and then we both got production designer credit during the series. So then he designed this oven so that you could film through it, right? So then we went with special effects, and then I had them put you know, flames in there so you could do the shot through the oven and all this crazy stuff. But that bakery was really like it. We ordered stuff from Miami. We had frozen pastelitos come from Miami, and I had done this several times. Like I shot a pilot that never got aired for ABC, and it was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, as Miami, and it was very important to me to make sure that that was very authentic. So we actually had all the pastelitos flown in, frozen. The decorator and the prop master were cooking them the night before with egg wash and doing all the things that you have to do to make sure that that bakery was good. So we did the same thing on the Baker and the Beauty. And then when we went to Puerto Rico, they bought a bunch of fake food from a company in Miami that makes fake food, and it was all accurate and looked great. And it was people walked in when we were setting up the bakery in Puerto Rico. People would walk in, and this was like a kind of a dead neighborhood. People were like, they're like, oh my god, a bakery here! Wow, that's can I buy anything? It's like it's fake. It's all fake. No, but can I buy something? It's fake. It's not a real bakery. You can't even eat the food. If you eat it, something will happen to you. Yeah, like it was. But yeah, that was a good project to represent Miami well, somewhere outside of Miami. And it was just because it's the age old problem that we have, that we want to have as many projects in Miami. And at the very if there's one thing we can do is represent it well when we can outside of Miami.
So going back to kind of, you talked a lot about the workaholic nature of not only you, but of the job itself. Have you found that most of that pressure comes from yourself to work all these crazy hours, or is it the reality of the work, and has any of that changed as you've gotten older?
It's part like yes. It partly the stress of the work itself. It's very demanding. I get a script in my hand a few hours before department heads get the script, and they get it a few hours before the rest of the crew gets the script. So I have a few hours to read the script and then disseminate what I want, or ideas or questions or whatever, right? Start designs, start conversations with people. I'm literally like reading a script and like, please, we need 100 pink horses for this scene. Somebody find pink horses, right? Like just random stuff. So I have a few hours to do that, and then they have a few hours to do that, and then we only have like 8 days to prep a episode, and then we have 8 days to shoot the episode. So from the time I get a script to the time we're shooting a house, a location, or something is maximum 16 days, right? Most of the time it's like 10, 11, 12 days. So we don't really have time to breathe. So if stuff is not getting done, right? Like if a graphic designer is not doing stuff on time, he goes home and somebody has to finish his stuff for him. Or never, not my current one. Um, no, but so before I had a life partner and a child, um, I would send everyone home and say, "Go to your families," and I would stay and finish their job. And now I'm like, I'm not doing that. Sorry. So I don't do that anymore. So now I go home and I spend time with them, and then I keep working. I get emotional because I'm happy, not for anything else.
Yay! We like that. But yeah, I think we in film, there are partially artificial and partially like real realities of filming, and we all want to do the best that we can, so it's hard to not put that pressure on yourself to get it done, because at the end of the day, like, you care about what's on film. We do this because we care about the stories and what it looks like.
I do care, but I think a lot of it has to do with my mom, just the way that I was raised, and being like, she doesn't know how to say no either. She just like does things, right? So it's like on Burn Notice, it was like, I want to do this cool thing, but I don't really have time for it. So basically, I lived 5 minutes away from that studio, and I would spend 3 or 4 nights a week in that office, like in different offices. Every day, a new producer would walk into their office, and I would be sleeping on their couch, and they would say, "Okay, Danny, it's time to wake up and start going back to work." And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I was just sleeping for like 2 hours." Right? So that was like the thing on Burn Notice. Like, I slept in the office all the time.
And no one told you, go home, stop working like this, or brought in help so that you didn't feel like you did that?
No. They would say, "Stop doing so much." And I'd say, how do I stop doing so much? Right? Like, you
pick something off the list to not get.
Right. No, that's what it would be. And I didn't want to do the not, I couldn't pick a thing off the list to
Yeah,
not
but neither
do.
would they.
Right. But it was my list. Right. So that at that time it was now my lists are a little bit smaller. Right. But it was my list. So it was like, I want to do that cool thing. I want to make that graphic. I want to make the whatever. I want to make it look like a real CIA thing, which it never did. But I tried. And I wanted, so I wanted to do all those things and do more. And they never put pressure on me that way. I put the pressure on myself back then. And at that time, I was like, what? Who gives a shit? Like, I'll work Monday through Friday. Friday, I would, you know, leave at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, watch my favorite, band play in, a transit or wherever,
Your own music video that you had for a short time.
yeah, or a PAX, yeah, that I owned for a while, but that I owned the whole time. But go literally watch, enjoy nightlife of Miami live music, which is something that I love, and did that. Like that was Friday, Saturday night. And then Saturday I would wake up, whatever time I wake up, go back to the office, do the same thing, leave at midnight, go watch a band or two, and then Sunday go back to I mean, 7 days a week for 7 years, so, and I was okay with it, Now I'm not okay with it.
The joys of being young.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So have you ever had, so we've talked a lot about kind of your relationship with directors and kind of the crew above you. Talk a little bit about your relationship with your art department crew. Have you ever had kind of issues getting them to believe in your vision? How do you decide who to work with? What is that relationship like?
It's so I have a couple people I have a tight crew. And then I have some people I have regional people that I'm tight with, right? So like if I'm in Atlanta, I have my construction person. If I'm in Miami, I have my construction person. My art director, I will anywhere in the universe that I go, I will give up whatever I need to give up to make sure that he's there. Because without him, I can't literally do anything. I'm like a lost child. I have a nephew that I see him, and he needs to be, fed like a child, fed and changed, and that's me without my art director. Um, and then I have a graphic designer. The core crew for a production designer is your art director, a set designer, and a graphic designer. Those are like for me at least, those are the three people that you need to have that are um, tight. So Nick joined our crew 2 years ago, and we've worked on a project. He stays in Miami. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. He stays in Miami. Okay. Oh, woo.
Breaking
Um,
news.
but I'll make sure because sometimes they want you have to have a little bit of a discussion with the studio about hey, my person is remote, and then they're like, yeah, but why can't you have somebody? Don't worry, I figured it out. I have a system, whatever, right? So you kind of have to have that little battle with them, but then they just do it and they say, okay, that's fine. So Nick will, until he stops tolerating me, will continue to work with us. And then my set designer is based out of Atlanta, and she's been with us for a couple years. And before that, I couldn't really find a solid set designer that was full time with me, mostly because that is a category. Well, also with graphic design, I think it's a little intimidating. I'm sorry, I'm saying it in front of you, but I think it's a little intimidating to work for me when I could do the same thing that you could do. Although in Nick's case, I can't draw one iota, 1/5, 1/100th of the way that he could draw. So I rely on him a little bit more, right? Like before, I didn't have that ability to rely. Although my previous graphic designer was really great, and he worked with me for 10 years until he was done with me. And I think he had a lot of changes he wanted in his life as well. And he didn't like. I would let him, he would say, okay, go home, whatever. But there was still a long list of stuff to do, and he kind of got broken on MacGyver because MacGyver was a show where very similar to Burn Notice, and I did it for 7 years while I was doing 5 other jobs. But it was very difficult for him because he was having to do a lot of product labels, MacGyver. So he's grabbing an oil can and then a starter fluid and then whatever and that, and all those things have to be custom labels and custom products and designs, and so it was very difficult to keep up with that world, and then the demanding stuff that I would put on top of it. So because we're very graphics heavy in my world. And then there's I do more stuff than other production designers. I have a whole print shop, and we do LEDs and all sorts of above and beyond crazy stuff to cut costs for the production and be able to design more cool stuff.
As someone who owns one of the yellow pages that you helped graphic design for Pain and Gain,
Yeah.
Because if you're friends with the art department, they will put your name in cool stuff on the movie.
Mhm.
So like the hero page of the yellow pages where he looks up for a detective, right above the actor's picture is Orta Detective Agency, and I still own that, and it's still in my house. So if you're not the art department to friend them, they will make you cool shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So so I have a tight crew that we try to stick around, but that also goes away. Like I had an assistant art director who I really like working with, and I kind of threw her into the fire. She was a set designer. She was actually a really good set designer. And then on Graceland, and when I moved to Atlanta, a couple people followed me to Atlanta. One of them is my partner now, which she wasn't my partner back then, but she is now. And this other person, the next show, I said, you're ready to be an assistant art director. You're doing it. And she was ready talent wise. She was not ready mentally. And I, she is now a big time art director for very, very big movies and has 2 Oscars. So she's great. But I threw her into that fire. And after that experience, she took a little break from art directing for a little bit, and she kept set designing. And then when she was ready, she finally stepped up. And I think the first project where she really was like, this is my world was she was one of the art directors on Haunted Mansion, so she's great. But she was like, I can't handle your stuff, so she went on. And it wasn't like I was just, very nice about it. I just, I said, you're in charge. Make it happen. You could do it. I was very encouraging, but the stress got to her, And it was because it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. So how do you balance between working with people you know and trust and wanting to give new people opportunities to kind of either join your team or just grow their skills? That was all me.
I oftentimes with department heads, I oftentimes try to hire people that are up and coming because it's very hard. I don't need to feel like I'm in like I don't need to be protected by department heads. I'd rather protect department heads. And I give people opportunities that otherwise wouldn't be given the opportunity. As a matter of fact, until when I hired Nick, I was about to hire some kid that had just graduated from film school as a graphic designer. Was not a graphic designer, but was like, all right, he's okay enough that he could do some stuff and then I'll do the rest. Like that was my mentality. Give him an opportunity and give him a shot. And so that guy's actually still with me. He runs the LED walls and he's wonderful. But he almost got the graphic design job, which is like something that takes a while, to get into. But I just saw something in him that I'm like, oh, I could hire him and I could help him, move along. So I do that often. And I think that the set designer situation was something that I did that for a while. And it was like, I teach them a little bit and then I send them on their way and I say, okay, you can keep working with me, but especially in Atlanta, the good ones, they go away because they're just not available at that time. So I did that for many years where I'll hire a new set designer and give them opportunity and then send them on their way. Same thing with the prop master. Like I hired a prop master on the show that I said in North Carolina. It was a girl that a woman that had been assisting other prop masters in Miami for a very long time. And for a very long time, she was doing their job, right? Like she was 100% doing their job. They were shit at their job, but they were men in their 50s that had been working in the industry for 20 years and were complacent and didn't care about the job and were flying back home to LA to hang out and stealing from the company and doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
That never happens on film sets,
especially not in props. So this person that I tried to hire on Graceland, I said she's ready. They're like, she's not ready. She's 28 years old, and I'm like, I'm 29. Like I'm the boss's boss. Like, what are you talking about, right? And finally, on the project it was for ABC. It was called The Death of Eva Sofia Valdez. Um, and it never got picked up, but that was actually created by somebody who has an Oscar as well now, um, Charisse Castro Smith, who wrote and directed Encanto. Um, so she hired me because she grew up in Miami, in Little Havana. This was a Miami story. She wanted to be authentic. She's like, this is my opportunity with ABC. It was her first project with ABC. She had, I think, was probably had written Encanto and was like the ABC Disney connection was there. So she went from that to Encanto, and so she was like my boss, and she wanted to make sure that the people that she hired were really authentic. So I said, well, then we're gonna hire somebody that I think is gonna bring that authenticity to the project. And I told the studio, I want to hire this prop master, and they said absolutely not. They gave me a list of 5 people, and I said, I won't do this job if you don't hire this prop master. And it was a person that I knew was ready for it, and she became a prop master on that project, and she's never looked back. So that's the kind of stuff that I do, and I want to do. Sometimes it backfires. Like I had a decorator that sometimes you give people opportunities and they fail, but you just keep giving people opportunities, and I think a lot of people don't do that. I think it's really tough in our industry. People try to, they don't. I'm not intimidated. I'm not like, I don't feel threatened by people being awesome, right? I think if they're awesome, then great. Then you're better than me. Then take my job. Like that's amazing. I'll work for you. So, but yeah.
There's definitely not enough of that mentality. I think, especially in Miami, because there isn't a ton of work, and especially not a ton of studio stuff, people do tend to get very protective, and don't want that competition because there isn't that much jobs to go around. So, but I think there are a handful of people, and I think you were one of them. I think Mark's always been really great at that. And a bunch that want to do that, want to see this grow. So on that note, what is your advice to someone who is trying to break into the industry, either in the department or art department or in anywhere else? Like, what is your main kind of advice on how to do this and how to get people like you and me to hire them?
Don't give up, right? So there's a couple things, right? So when you're getting into the business, like, you have to, the goal is to be in the film industry. The goal to make it so that it's not a hobby is to be able to survive, right? To make your monthly payments, right? To live off of being a filmmaker. So how do you do that? At first, you literally have to call everybody that you could think of and find advertisements. And I don't believe in the whole work for free thing, although I've given tens of thousands of free hours to billion-dollar studios. That's my choice when I'm on a project and I'm getting paid. But like the whole work for experience and for blah blah blah. And I think it's not, and it's not because like, hey, you're screwing me over by not paying me. I think it's because your goal should be that that's what you're doing to support yourself and your family. So even if it's $100, right? Like if you have to have another job, that's the reality of breaking into the film industry, which is crazy because there's no other industry. You go to law school, you pass the bar exam, you will get a job as a lawyer, right? Pretty much any profession, you get the certificate of that profession, you will get a job in that profession. It might be difficult, right? But it's not like other professions where you have to like be a bartender or a server, although those two jobs could be a career, right? But like if it's not, you don't have to be working 2 or 3 jobs to get into the industry, right? I say that loosely, but some lawyers have to wait years or whatever. But you get trained in a certain area, and you could work in that area. You
and
could
they're
be
clear.
A paralegal. You could do whatever, right?
And there are clear avenues to that where like
Right.
there are not clear avenues where to find the jobs or who even to like call.
So the best suggestion for me, which is something that I say all the time, which is go to a major film hub city, not Miami, unfortunately. New York, Atlanta, LA, and take a PA course, right? Take a course that teaches you how to be a production assistant, even though you've gone to film school. And the reason why you take that course is to meet people, right? And then you go to another production hub, and then you take another PA course, and then you meet more people. Then you go to another city, and then you, believe it or not, you take those courses or you fly to those places and you find not mixers, you find something that gets you to meet people. All of a sudden, you go back to Miami, and all of a sudden, you'll get a call. Hey, I met you in New York. I'm coming to Miami for a commercial. Are you available? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I am available because I'm not working because I'm trying to break into the business. And you say, yeah, let me check my schedule. Let me see. Yep. What is it? The Friday, the 14th? Yeah, I think I'm available. I got to double check a few things. But yeah, so then you'd be surprised how many people call you from that kind of random stuff. And it's the persistence, right? You have to keep going. You have to it's almost impossible to get your foot in the door. And then it's almost impossible to keep your foot in the door. And then once you're through the door, it's very possible to get kicked back out of the door. So it's relentless. It's like nonstop.
It's so much fun what we've chosen for our lives.
It is. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, right now there's a lot of people that are really, really talented that are, not, that are out. They're doing other things, which is also crazy because like me, so I actually never graduated from school, right? I never finished school. I recently got my associate's degree while working 2 projects, flying back and forth. It was the most insane year and a half of my life.
Lies. I know you. It probably is on par with like 90% of your years.
Oh, I was summa cum laude for sure. Like I had to. My mom makes fun of me because I had to retake one class because I got a B in it. I wanted to retake it to get an A in it because if not, I wouldn't get a 3.97 GPA.
That is the most Danny story I've ever heard.
It's stupid. It was dumb, and I don't recommend doing it. But literally, that was like I was in Ubers reading course material and like on flights, and it was insane. It was pretty tough. But because I was thinking like with the lockdowns of COVID, and then now with the strikes, like I was like, what is my retirement plan, right? Like I can't be doing this for another 30 years. I mean, I guess I could, but not this way, right? And I don't know how to do it any other way. So what did I start doing? I started directing to transition, right? I started producing, but then I started thinking like, well, that's not gonna really, what if the industry like gets really slow and like, there's all these people that are super saturated right now. So I'm like, I love educating, right? So then maybe I'll get my master's degree and start teaching. And I'm like, well, to get a master's degree, you kind of have to have a degree. So then I started going to school, right? So like 20 years into my career, I go to school and then online, I'm getting a business associate's degree in business, not even in film. So that was super random. And that's me that has never this year I did one project, one movie, which I was super lucky to do, which I ended up getting a producer credit on as well. But, I saved, right? I have money saved for this kind of thing. I always preach, save a year, right? And I say, save a year's worth of money, right? You make a lot of money, but pretend that you're making no money so that you could survive for an entire year. Not 3 months, not 6 months, an entire year and beyond.
At least. Yeah, I think the mathematics for filmmakers are so different than other jobs. Like, yeah. I agree. I've never had less than a year of savings since I started this because I knew, especially because I decided I'm going to stay here no matter what. But like I was going to be there.
This is unique to Miami filmmakers.
I think it's unique to most filmmakers. No. Most filmmakers, they see those paychecks and they're like, this will go on forever. Like, right. No, and it just never, it's even unique, if you do well.
Right. It's unique to save money for Miami people. People in Atlanta do not do this. Well, people in Miami grew up in a film industry that is very up and down, right? So you do movies, right? That blockbuster movies that come into town for 2 weeks at a time. That gives you a couple months of work, right? A lot of people are relying on commercials that you work 3 commercials in a month, and then that you have enough rent for 3 or 4 months, but then you might not have 3-4 months of work. So commercials and music videos in Miami is the bread and butter of our industry. So people have learned to save a different way here in Miami than they do in other places. In Atlanta, I get calls. It's crazy. I got a call from a guy a month ago saying, I'm gonna lose everything, Danny, and oh my God, and this guy is like 25 years old. I'm gonna lose everything, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna lose my house. My wife's about to kick me out, and I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have bought the 3 jet skis and the Ford F-350 dually $150,000 car, and the $3 million house, and like all this crazy shit. I'm like, you're a carpenter. Like, why are you doing this, right? Like, it's a lot. You spent a lot of money last year. And he's like, wow, I didn't know, like the industry's booming. And I said, but I always say, save. Like, it's not booming, right? Like, it's not going to keep doing that. So, and I said, and he called me afterwards and he said, thank you. And I said, just sell everything. He's like, oh, the bank's going to collect it. I'm 2 months behind on the thing. I just sell it all. Just put it on Facebook Marketplace, sell it all. I could do that? Yes. Just like, stop making the payments. Like, don't get it repossessed. Sell it, Get rid of everything. And he broke even, but now he doesn't have this crazy, monthly whatever. He had to move into an apartment. It's, it wasn't a $3 million house, but it was literally like a $2.5 million house. It's like, what are you doing? So, yeah, we're unique in the sense that we have thought about that for forever. I don't know where this started, but yes, finances, it's important.
Very important. So there's still a couple of questions that have come in, but I want to open up if anyone wants to ask questions live. Yeah, we've got some
We have
time.
a whole nother hour, guys.
No, we have a half hour. What are you talking about? It ends at 1.
You're stuck. Carlos, do you have any questions? Oh. No. Anyone?
Okay, well,
Questions?
anyone gets brave enough. Oh,
Oh yeah. So wait, that's where like. No, thank you, Carlos. Yes, I want to get into teaching. That's why I want to get into teaching at the college level and master's degree level, because otherwise I don't. It's very difficult. No. So that's where it started. So I started thinking about what do I do if the film is not going to be a full term life career. And I still, how do I get out without getting out, right? And I said, well, I could teach, right? Because I love teaching, and I'm raised by an educator, and there's educators all around me, right? So, so I said I could teach. I have to get a degree, right? So I started going to school, and then with the end goal to get a master's in film after I get a bachelor's in business, which is going to be interesting. But get a master's in film to be able to teach, right? And like semi-retire and like teach. So it's like even at 40, like I started planning that like a couple years ago. So my plan is to have the master's degree by the time I'm 45, and then kind of semi-retire there. I say semi-retire, but it's not really retiring. Doing less projects, right? And then just teaching, and then doing like a project or something here. I have 5 years to, if I could direct an episode of 2 a TV a year, right? That's like the goal for me. So I'm not really like this ambitious, like I want to be the biggest name in TV. I just want to keep doing fun things, and like we get paid a lot of money just to make things, and it's fun.
I mean, we are and we don't. We get paid decently, but we also work like unbelievable hours.
Okay. See, this is where Mark Harrington, right? This is where maybe 10 years ago I would really be angry at him, because I'm like, Mark is going to another dinner party and I got to stay here and do all this stuff. But he would have done it, right? Like he does the work, but he's like, just don't take yourself so serious. Like, who cares, right? Do less. And it's like, so I realized, do less. And so I really hone in on like what is actually being seen on camera, right? So I do less, but it still looks like more. Yeah, but we do make a lot of money compared to like the real world. If we're working.
Right. That's a big thing. And that's the reason we make, and I think that a lot of people don't understand that, is like the reason that film
Notice I said the real world as if this is not the real world. Even 20 years into a career, it's still fake.
It's not that it's fake.
It's a real job, right, Mom? Now, I guess.
But yeah, I think people see what our day rates and stuff are and be like, you guys make so much money. I'm like, yeah, because those rates are predicated on the fact that they know that we're not going to work every day.
Correct.
And that's like, those rates are meant to cover you for the months. And I'm talking about months where you won't work. Because even if you work, let's say you live in LA and you work at a studio job doing a network show that's 22 episodes, you're still not working 4 months out of the year. Like
Right.
they don't pay you when you're on hiatus. They're like, go enjoy. So like your rates have to cover, even if you're very successful and working consistently, cover when you're not. Because none of us, like honestly, you couldn't do this
Right.
and work all year. You burn out. It's a lot of hours and it's a lot of stress.
Although, with the exception, ignoring 2020 with the COVID and ignoring this year, I think I've only had 2 years since 2007 where I didn't work, you know, 9 months, 10 months out of the year. I think it was 2016. That was like, it was right when I was like, it was like when I was like the most like, I'm not taking another job that's not a production design job. I don't care. I'd rather starve, and I did. Um, I ate a lot of rice that year, a lot, and yeah. Other than that, there was only one other year that I could remember that I wasn't like working all the time. One like very very rare. So, and even that, me doing working as much as I work, still preaching like you gotta to others like save, you gotta save. But then again, I bought a bar, so back then, like
Oh,
packs.
I'm like, did you buy another bar?
No, no, that was I should have done Bitcoin. If I would have done for that investment, I would be worth like $150 million if I would have taken that money and invested it in Bitcoin instead.
But then we would have had packs. I love packs.
Instead, I lost $150,000, and I have a lifetime of memories.
So we talked a lot about the people you work with. One of the question is, since you do think about camera angles and story so much, do you work closely with the TPs, and is it common to work with the TPs? And what is that kind of conversation like?
In features, you work a lot more hand in hand, right? And you really, it's a really fun process in features because you give them an idea, then you talk about camera angles with them and the director together, and then you say, well, I put this window over here at this height for that, for this scene. And then they say, oh, that's awesome. Can you move it like 3 feet over? Because I'm gonna do this, and then you really like are collaborating well, right? And you're working well, like you're painting together, and it's great. In TV, if you have DPs that are alternating, right, which is more common now than it was before. You used to have only one DP. If there's only one DP on set, they're on set while you're prepping. So your part of your job is to protect them and really think like them as well, and think about the lighting and think how the set is gonna go. And then you basically have one meeting where you sit there at lunch and you show them a bunch of shitty pictures and you're like, and the set's gonna look like this, and you have 20 minutes to keep eating. Don't worry, and everything's great, right? It's awesome, and they're like, yeah, I don't care. I gotta go shoot the whole scene now. Like, what do I care? So you really have to think extra to protect them during that time when you don't have them around. But when you have them, it's really awesome. Like, it's super fun. On MacGyver, I had two really, really awesome DPs that we just spent a lot of time together designing sets. Like, they were lighting designing and I was designing, and we were doing it together. And a lot of the production design fed off of what their needs, and a lot of their needs fed off of or wants fed off of what I could give them. Yeah, MacGyver was one thing. I only did season 5 of the new one, and I said one of the things that I changed on it. I said, listen, for 4 years you guys have had the same stupid lights, yellow light, and any emergency on this show is a yellow rotating light. Like, around the world, it's an emergency. It's a yellow, and I said, why? And they're like, well, that's the only thing they ever offered. Like, we wanted the emergency lights, and that's what they bring. And I'm like, yeah, but guys, there's technology. There's like lights that you could use that have different colors and strobes, different things. And they said, okay, then do it. And so I got different lights, and I would say, we're gonna do this time. They're like, oh my god, it's amazing. It's not a yellow stupid light going around. And I was like flabbergasted that for 4 years they never did that before. So, but that was very fun, right? They really enjoyed that, and then they fed off of it. Then they're like, oh, can you do this now too? What if you do a little light like this? And what if you do? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that, Or sometimes I'm like, we're not doing that because we don't have time, But it's really good to collaborate when you have the time.
And I think speaking to that collaboration, I mean, have as someone who went to film school, studied film history and theory, once I started working in the industry, it always surprised me just how much of the creative process happens without the director. I think we've become a society that has kind of accepted the auteur theory of film as kind of gospel, that director is the main kind of voice of a film. And I think in a lot of instances and for a lot of directors that is the case, but having done a lot of this work now, it doesn't feel like it's necessarily the case all the time. Do you feel that? Do you feel like, especially in my experience, I mean, I've been on shows where the director doesn't even see the location options until the production designer's like, I want that one, and that's the only one I'm going to show the director.
Yeah.
So how much does that happen? How much do you think the DP and the production designer and the wardrobe people are really putting of themselves and making this visual alongside or in place of the director?
It depends on the director, truthfully, right? Going back to Father of the Bride, right? Like I think he wanted me on the project, and I think for him it was more of wanting somebody that he could trust to just take care of that, right? Like take care of all of that. The person who I think is the reason why I didn't get on the project ended up having to hire additional assistant to go walk around and take pictures of all the art department stuff, because it was happening so bad that he had to be really involved, right, in the art department, and he ended up hiring the other person because he thought they were going to be more reliable in taking care of all the stuff, right? And so in that project in particular, they wanted a production designer that would handle all of it, right? But other projects they want, they want to hold hands, right? So it depends on the director. I mean, yeah, for the most part, it's the director just comes in and is focused on cast and focused on camera angles and focused on what they're shooting on the day. If you're a very stylistic person, right, as a director, right, everyone uses Wes Anderson because that's a very obvious right thing. That's a group that has been very aesthetic design wise, but I really don't know. Everyone says it's him, but I don't know if it's him or it's his production designer, right? Maybe they collaborated together for that aesthetic. Maybe it is Wes Anderson.
I've literally thought that about Wes Anderson all the time,
Right.
because it's that thing where he gets credit for what, even if it is his idea and his concept, someone else is executing and making that happen. And like having worked on set, like I know the director doesn't have enough time
Correct.
to be picking those colors and doing all those things. Like most directors will be like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, not actually being the one going to the other departments going, I want this, 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 and this. No human being can make that many decisions. There's a reason why 200 people work on a movie.
Correct. And I think that's why, like, maybe at the beginning of that career with that collaborating team, they created an aesthetic together, and they prepped, a movie where they created that aesthetic together, and then they just went for it afterwards. But I think, yeah, when you're building a new world together, you kind of talk about it at the beginning, and then once they know that you understand the vision and that you're going to take that vision and run with it, then you just go.
Is there a particular style or period that you particularly love building and doing?
No. I don't like getting bogged down with details that I don't think matter, which will relate to, or actually, so like if I'm doing a period piece, which I've done a couple times, like flashbacks and stuff like that, I sometimes get in trouble with myself with getting too involved with the details, right? So that I'm like, wait, but that baseboard was not, that didn't come out till 1987. You can't use that. This is, so then but you have to do that, right? Like you have to protect yourself. You see it all the time. That painting was painted 6 years after the whatever. There was another one that I saw the other day. The piece of music wasn't, didn't come out till 10 years after this movie was supposed to be, So I don't want to be a OCD person about period pieces. Some people really love doing that. I don't say I don't love it, but I just say I think I drive myself crazy with too much like, OCD about like getting it right. I probably have to hire like a historian. I don't know. It'd be weird. So, but I've gotten through it, like the couple flashbacks and stuff. I just say, just generally go for it, like, in that period. So what do I like the most? I like a project where I have the most creative ability to do whatever I want to do.
Do you have a preference between features or TV shows?
I used to like TV shows more because I did like the closure of having an episode be done and then you move on to the next thing. Even though after we shoot an episode, we're still editing for months and I'm still getting calls from post production talking about signage and graphics and the VFX and the colors and all the other crazy stuff. But now that I want to slow down a little bit, I'm starting to enjoy features a little bit more because you have more time to prep and it's not as, I know it's crazy to say this, but it's not as much work. And it's only one, it's like one. I think I used to like really like having the volume, and now I prefer to have the piece.
And so, one of the questions is, how do you kind of negotiate the prep time and the things you need to make it happen? I think we all come to projects where they're like, we want the world in 2 days. Can you make it happen? Have you had to push back on productions that don't give you enough time? Do you make it work? Do you cut corners without them knowing to make it happen?
That is the time where I live in the office for 7 weeks while I'm prepping and try to give everything that they ask for. Usually, I'm the one that is the person that is doing the asking of myself, and I try to balance and not ask too much of my crew. But I think that what I think is not too much and what is really not too much are two different things, which is why I understand that. And then I say, I feel like this is too much. I'm going to stop here and I'll do the rest. But then people are like, oh no, I got to help him finish that. Right. So then I get people rallying around the ideas, or I really insist and say, I know this is too much, but then is it even that threshold too much? Is even my, it's hard to, and I'm slowing down little by little. I'm slowing down with as much, and it's not a negative thing, right? It's just because like I want 1,000 things. I want 1,000 pieces of flair, right? And I don't say I'm not like the shot what is it, Tchotchkes or whatever. What's the name of that place? I don't ask for 20 pieces of flair and expect you to bring 50. I ask for 50, right? Like that's just the way it is. Sorry.
So to close this out, we've talked about kind of long term what your exit strategy is.
Yeah.
Short term, what is it that you want to see for your career? Is it more production design work? Do you want to move more into directing and producing? What do you see yourself in the next kind of 5 or 10 years doing?
Well, if you would have asked me this at the beginning of the year, I would have said that I want to produce and direct more, which is helpful to not work as many hours as I do, which is also crazy because then people think, but the director is the one that works the most. They don't, and neither is the producer. And I don't. It's not that I want to be lazy.
I think it depends on the producer. They have a different kind of work,
Correct.
And they work on projects obviously longer. But 100% the director is not the busiest person on a production.
So now, being realistic, right? When the industry wakes up again, like I'm not going to get any directing jobs. I'm not going to get any producing jobs. I will get more jobs where I get a producer credit because it's starting to happen. But the reality is like everybody's available now, right? So why would they hire me to direct? Just like why would they hire somebody else to production design when I'm available, right? And they might not know me at all, but I have 200 episodes of TV in my resume, right? So why would they hire somebody without any episodes of TV? So that's the reality. So it's like production design, keep going and keep, kicking butt production designing and then kind of start fresh again with like the directing and the producing and slowly weasel again back into doing some of that stuff.
But regardless of what the industry will dictate, what do you want to move into?
I want to I want to direct more, and I want to produce more. I want to production design less. Um,
Is there a reason for that?
it's because I don't know how to production design any like less than being extra shit. And as much as I try, and as much as I, you know, like I don't know how to go for a C minus. You know, I just don't know how to do it. I really don't. So it's hard to um, it's hard to see certain things that can be done and that I know could be done, and then just not do it. You know, because then in the back of my head, I'm like, did somebody else notice that I didn't do it, even though it could be done? In the back of my head, I'm like, you know, um, did I say no? Do they know that I said no, but I could have said yes, right? And what I'm learning a little bit more, what the thing that is helping me slow down is learning when they're asking for stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but you really don't want it. You're just asking because you want to ask for something else, right? So that I'm getting really good at, but I just don't know how to slow down. So I know that if I'm directing, I show up in a city, I prep an episode, I do really good work, right? And then I leave the city and hopefully a better place, hopefully with a happy crew that didn't have some asshole yelling at them for 7 days, right? Because that's why I wanted to start directing, because we had too much of that coming in, and make a show's life a better place for a few days and then leave, and maybe the next person's mean or they're better or whatever. And that to me is more desirable because I could just go and spend time with my family and then, do Girl Scouts and all the other crazy stuff that my fiance, puts me in on. I love you, looking into the camera. You're gonna watch this later. Thank you. Um, and I prefer to do that, and not, you know, be extra,
I can't imagine a more extra director than you.
No, but see,
But
I'm
yeah,
not-
but
I'm not
there's
gonna
just less. There's less things.
and no, exactly. And like, I've directed, right? And when I'm directing, I'm not thinking like, because I'm so new to that, right? So when I'm directing, I'm not thinking of like, what is the art department gonna do? I'm thinking like, I gotta focus on the tone of the actors and the lines and where, when they hit this line, what am I, what's my angle gonna be and what's the shot gonna be and the lenses and like there's whole other thought process, right? So I can't think about lighting. I can't think about the art department. You walk into set and you hope it looks great. The times that I've directed, I've also been the production designer, so I know it looked great. So, but, like it was MacGyver. I did a thing in MacGyver where it was like this. It was this huge finale. It was the season finale, and I had to direct one scene. And like I walked in because I spent 2 weeks designing that set, and I walked in and I didn't even look at anything, right? I just focused on the angles, the actors, and I've like blacked out. And then I looked when I was watching the dailies the next day. I was like, damn, that set looked good, and I was like, oh, I designed it. But I didn't even like I was blacked. I was like blackout. I didn't even think about that set at all when I was doing that thing. So yeah, I won't be extra. I'll be focused on making it a better workplace.
You'll be a different kind of extra.
Maybe,
You will
yeah.
always be extra.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. This was awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation.
You talk so much. You're being very rude. You're giving. Oh, so you're giving the insights of all the.
So there's one more session in our Filmcraft series. The next one will be with the director and producers of the South Beach Shark Club documentary, talking about their amazing marketing campaign for their video on demand release and how they've been able to sell that film and make it successful and make their hopefully money back.
Miami-Dade College, by the way.
Yeah.
They were Miami-Dade. Yeah, that's funny because
Robert and Pedro from the South Beach Shark Club documentary.
Yeah, they. So one of the things that I do with Miami-Dade still is I'm on the committee for to pick like the
what gets produced.
What gets produced. Of course, I forgot the name of the class. Good advertisement for Miami-Dade. But yeah, that was one of the projects that we picked, and it was like when they pitched, we go through all these pitch sessions, and one of the things I emphasize big time with the students is like make sure that all of the classmates are involved, but also like make sure that this is like fruitful. Like this is all. I literally say like this is not a project that you're gonna sell, right? Like this is like, you're going through an exercise. Learn how to do the thing before you do the thing. And these guys went and they did the thing and they sold the thing. So that's amazing.
And the thing is great.
And the thing is great.
And the thing is great.
It's great.
So I hope you all join us for that. That's going to be November 25th right here at the Corrigal Cinema again. If you'd like to learn more about what Miami Film Lab does, please find us. We're at miamifilmlab.org or at Miami Film Lab on all the social media things. Thank you all again for coming, and thank you, Danny. This was an amazing and fun conversation, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you, guys.
Yes. Thank you.